How do I feel comfortable naked after betrayal?
What's up, you guys? Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast. I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler. We're brothers.
We're therapists,
We're not afraid of your questions.
so bring it. All right, Tyler. I'm excited to get into that question. It's actually a very common question that we get all the time. But before we do, just want to ask you, how was your week? How are things going?
Things are going good right now. Burning the candle at both ends with life in general. As you know, I work at UPS part-time in the mornings for my medical benefits, and this week I'm hitting 20 years.
Wow.
And I told myself when I originally got hired there, right after I got married, I decided I need medical benefits for my new wife when I was married 20 years ago. And so we decided to go to UPS because it was part-time work for full-time benefits. And I told her after the first day, if I last more than 5 years here, I need to kill myself.
Well, now you've done 4 times that.
Now it's been 20 years. So,
yeah.
But it's nice having you back because I've been trying to hold down the fort alone, and it's much better with you in the mix. So I'm glad you're back.
Sorry, I've been at MIA, but I'm back and ready to go, and actually really excited about the guest we have and the question we've got. So I think, what do you say we dive right in, Tyler?
Let's do it.
Okay. So we have Rachel on with us this morning, and Rachel, to be honest with you, I don't really know her. And Tyler, you don't really know her either, right?
Nope.
So she had a great question. She wanted to come on. So we're going to actually have her introduce herself and give some of the background to her question and where it's coming from. And we'll dig in from there. So Rachel, welcome to the show. And if you could just kind of tell us who you are and why you're here and what your question is.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me. Just basically how to feel comfortable naked when you go through life, being taught that you're just a sex object, basically, that's how you grow up. And then when you get married and your spouse is addicted to pornography and they see your body naked for the first time, they make fun of it. It's not good enough. It's not what they were expecting. It's super, it's just so frustrating, on your psyche in a sense, right? Mm-hmm. And so you go through the rest of your marriage thinking, what do I need to change about me? How do I make him love me? How do I change something about me so he's attracted to me? And then you just keep comparing, looking up ways to change your body. And it's just so frustrating. And then the second you get naked in front of your spouse, it's is he making fun of me still? Even after he stopped watching pornography or tried to change himself, it's those thoughts just continue in your mind, like
Rachel, is he still making fun of you?
No, so I'm not married, but I still
okay.
have problems with it, if that makes sense. Like
absolutely.
Now, in my relationship I have now, it's still just one of those things, like how do you not think like every man wants that type of body? How does every man like be okay with a real body? I guess, right. Like in my thoughts, I have to be this perfect voluptuous woman. When you see it all over the place, how do I stop thinking that, I guess, too, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Tyler, you have thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm clear before I say what's on my mind here. So your question's about basically some past experience, not only with like just society, which we definitely want to probably talk a little bit about today, but also in a past relationship. So you're not currently in the same relationship as where these messages were kind of like outwardly shared with you.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not in anywhere.
All right. Yeah.
Which doesn't mean that the triggers aren't still there.
No, they're still there.
Oh, of course. By nature, they're going to be there when you have an experience like that. That's I mean, just when we look at it, just think about it in terms of like sexual intimacy in a relationship. That's maybe one of the most vulnerable places in a relationship. And so if there's something that's traumatizing that's happening inside of that vulnerable space already, there's going to naturally be, you know, some consequences to it, some that are going to leave some marks. And you're bringing up this question, and first I just want to say you definitely are not the only one who asked this question. I'm so glad that you're willing to come on and share this, because it's a vulnerable topic to talk about. But you're definitely not alone. This is a really common thing that happens.
Yeah.
So
I think things like, you know, for somebody to make fun of somebody's body, that's emotionally abusive, and it's not okay. And you know, I hear all the time women who don't want to get naked in front of their husband, not because their husband has made fun of them, but just because their husband is indulging with pornography, and you know, and they just feel inadequate, and they feel not enough, and they feel like they're going to be used as a sexual object. And so, you know, just that alone can make you feel all those things, let alone having him make fun of you and having him actually probably drive all of your worst fears home. So yeah, that's trauma, and it takes your shame, and it kind of solidifies it some. But I know there's ways out of it. Rachel, you can actually heal from this, and Tyler and I will give you some ideas and some things that you can do. Let's back up though. Tyler brought this up. You said that, you know, society kind of tells you that you're a sex object. I'm just curious about some of those messages that you got and some things that you believed before you got married, before you were vulnerable in an intimate way.
You know, I mean, like past relationships, right? In high school, boys, that's all they had, you know, I mean, that's all they talked about. And it was, you know, like women's bodies constantly, right? Of how cute they were, of how big their boobs were, of how, you know, just it was always about the body, you know. And me, I was a little bit chunky in high school. And so I always just had that, like, I need to be like her. I need to be like her so I can get the boys, you know, kind of a dumb thing, you know. And not to go too deep into it, but a lot of like my growing up too was like, you're not good enough. And so I was trying to get good enough through boys, I guess, through their attention, through their whatever. And so then just kind of fast forward too, I mean, on TV, that's all you saw. Like there's not naked 50-year-old women getting naked on TV. You know, it's always the 18-year-old girl and the cute girls, the ones that want to, you know, the men want to, that would be turned on by more. So if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just kind of replay it in your mind over and over and over again. That's what men want. That's what men want. That's what men want. And then you get married and get told, you're not what I want. I want so-and-so, like somebody else. And so, yeah, it's just mainly media for sure, like TV and stuff.
So the message was your worth and your value comes from sex and comes from your physical, like attractiveness.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you say there's, and you don't have to get into this, but there's some other trauma that said to you that you're not enough, you're not okay as you are. And so you turn that into sex, and your physical body of trying to be enough.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you start to see those messages everywhere, all over TV, all over social media. Yeah. That drives home your worth is about how sexy you are and how wanted you are that way. Yeah.
I think it's a double whammy here too, Brannon, because, you know, it's like if we have something traumatic happen to us, the natural tendency for us to do, like if we've got this message that's coming that I'm not enough, whatever it is, a natural tendency to do is to grow these really long antennae that then look for the same types of things to confirm the belief that we're having. And so that's in play in this, you know, in Rachel, in your situation. And on top of that, it's not just like some fluke thing that you happen to notice all of those messages that are being sent. Like this is the world that we actually live in. is pretty unabashed about how they treat things, right? And even how they treat gender stereotypes. You know, it's like you can turn on any television station and there's going to be certain things on certain channels. You know, if you turn on ESPN, every other commercial is going to be a beer commercial, and in the beer commercial there's going to be, in the periphery, there's going to be women in bikinis that have like these perfect bodies, right? And in movies, same thing. Everything is geared towards this idea that really women are objectified. They are objectified, and it seems to be okay somehow, which is just baffles me with everything else that like the feminist movement pushes, but somehow they're okay with this idea that women are completely objectified, you know. And we're raised in an environment where that just becomes the normal, and so these messages are constantly there, and then you add on the trauma, and so this double whammy starts to stack up, and it becomes really, really difficult to start to see the forest from the trees and actually start to unwire those messages that have been carried with you for as long as you've been alive now at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see a girl from 2 miles away. You know, like, it's awful. I hate it. And like, it's just on my mind constantly. Just, she's prettier than I am. That's what a man wants. And, you know, just this awful tape in my mind. I don't like it.
Now, Rachel, if I were to ask you, like in your head, you know, if I were just to say, does your worth come from your looks? What would you say?
Cognitively, no. Like, as you know, like, I know for sure no.
Right.
But there's just that pull, because again, it's constantly everywhere. Like, you're watching a movie with somebody and there's a naked woman on there that's perfect, you know, and of course it's going to be arousing, you know, for the man or whatever, and it's just frustrating. Like, so there's, like you said, there's just those messages, and I need to find a way to turn that off in my mind, where I just don't let it bother me. But it's tough to not.
So cognitively, you know that that's not true.
Yes.
So if Tyler and I spent the rest of this podcast saying to you, it doesn't matter, your worth doesn't come from that, you'd be saying, that's great, that's wonderful, that's great, yeah, that's true. But you'd probably leave at the end of this podcast and still notice that woman 2 miles away who you think is a lot sexier than you, and you're comparing yourself to her. It wouldn't shift much.
No.
If you went to a therapy session, you did talk therapy, and the therapist dug down to some things, and you got to this place of you saying, I know that it's not true that my worth comes from my looks. You'd still leave that therapy session and be triggered into those same feelings. And so I guess what I'm saying is, if cognitively you already know it, what you don't need is to cognitively be told it. Just be kind of having that driven home on a cognitive level. Something else needs to shift. Something else needs to happen in order for you to experience a whole new reality around your self-worth, a whole new paradigm around your self-worth, rather than just talking about it. Okay.
Yeah.
So Tyler, am I making sense? Is this true?
Yeah, in my personal theory of change, and Brannon and I talk about this a lot, and we're always trying to figure out other ways to make these things happen. We believe that the most lasting kind of change happens when we have what we call emotionally corrective experiences, where there's something that happens down inside the emotional parts of us. And I'm pointing at my heart right now, but we're really talking about other parts of the brain too, where I have an emotional shift that allows me to feel something differently, that then lines up more and more with the cognitive part that I already know is true. Because there's actually a lot of pain in when you know something up here, but you don't actually believe it. It's almost adding to the shame in some ways, because it's like, I know better and I should feel better, but I actually don't feel better right now. So that means what? Naturally, I'm still not good enough. I'm still defective. I'm still bad. And so, yes, there should be some cognitive work where I recognize that process, and I meet those thoughts and I identify them, and maybe I challenge them. But the real work here, I think, is going to be an internal process. And I'm emphasizing the word process, where I'm going to be seeking to have some emotionally corrective experiences with myself, and maybe with a higher power, and in the context, even in my own relationships, where I'm going to start to experience things a little bit differently that can help to shift the belief and kind of lay out basically a new rule book for how I'm going to see myself.
Mm-hmm. Shame, Rachel, shame is a lie. It's the messages of shame are always a lie. You're not good enough. You're not beautiful enough. And you're not attractive enough. You don't have self-worth. Those are all lies. And what happens with our emotions is when we feel emotions, so shame is the fear of rejection or abandonment. When we feel those emotions, our emotions are there to tell us to do something, to act, to assert ourselves for our own survival. When an emotion is not grounded in reality, then the healthy thing to do with that emotion is actually opposite action. It's doing the opposite thing of what that emotion's telling you to do. So Rachel, you've spent a good portion of your life listening to that shame, and that shame said you're not beautiful enough, you're not worthy of love because you're not attractive enough. And you've probably, I don't know how, let me ask you, how have you tried to cope with that? Have you tried to not be vulnerable? Have you tried to overcompensate, lose weight, have sex more? Like, how have you tried to cope with these feelings of fear and shame?
Basically be who I'm not, for sure.
Mm.
Like just people please, for sure. And that was the way that I could fill my cup, I guess, in a sense, and just be somebody for somebody else.
Okay, so what's the opposite action of that? And this is the emotionally corrective experience. What's the opposite action of people pleasing?
Sticking up for myself.
Yeah.
you know, and being okay with myself, and knowing that my worth is okay. Like my thoughts are okay, my desires are okay. I can
Yeah.
make my own decisions and not have to worry about the reprimand from anybody.
Now, when you have that shame underneath saying, "Oh no, you don't. Like you're not worth it to do that." What you need to do is try to get your worth. You need to caretake. You need to people please. It can be terrifying to stick up for yourself. It can be so scary to say, "No, this doesn't work for me," or "Yes, this is what I do need. This is what I do want." Because you're used to trying to survive that shame a certain way. So acting opposite to it's going to be very uncomfortable when you first start to do that. So how do you get yourself to do it?
You tell me.
Tyler, what do you think?
I'm having Brene Brown's words go through my head right now, where she says, when you notice things, and this is, Rachel, I don't know what kinds of triggers you notice. I'm trying to like picture a scenario where, you're maybe in your current relationship and it actually, all of the right signs are there that it feels safe and it feels right to maybe be moving towards being physically, sexually intimate with your partner. And then you've got this other backstory of shame that's going on that's telling you, no, don't do that. Like you're going to be lost in your head the whole time thinking about how you're not good enough, and all that self-criticism is going to come up. And I don't know what it feels like in your body, but if you can recognize what some of those sort of like tells are, whether it's physiological, the way the shame's showing up, or whether it's certain like stories in your head that you notice and can go, oh, that's it, that's my script of shame, or whatever it is. When I become critically aware of those things, those triggers, then what Brene Brown says is, she'll take a deep breath and she said, I'll call on my courage. And I will identify that that's what's happening right now. I am being hijacked by this thing that we call shame. I'm cognitively aware that this is the right scenario and the right setting for me to maybe be a little bit more vulnerable, being able to be sexually intimate with my partner. I'm going to call deep on my courage, and I'm going to lean myself into that process, the very thing that I'm most afraid of. Now, the trick to that is you don't want to necessarily go doing that if you're in a setting where it's actually not going to be truly safe in the relationship. So if you're in a current relationship and you're going to be objectified, or you're going to be used, or you're going to be criticized, then calling deep on your courage and leaning yourself into that isn't necessarily going to be overly effective. It's going to want to, what we call, reenact the same old trauma. But if you're in a situation and you're going, yes, like, I know who my partner is cognitively, and I know that, he respects me, and I'm more than just a body to him. Okay, I'm going to lean myself in, and I'm going to
But
practice.
Tyler, I wanna just drive home what you're saying there. The first step is this curiosity piece and this mindfulness piece. Um, it it's so important that you can get grounded in reality, and as you do get grounded in reality, you can trust yourself. So if your emotion is saying it's fear because this person is going to objectify me, then absolutely listen to that. That don't do opposite action in that moment of what your emotion's saying. Protect yourself, your emotions. Trust your emotion. If you get grounded in reality and you realize my partner's safe, but I don't want to be vulnerable. My partner's actually going to be very caring and kind and patient with me, but I'm the one making it so that I can't be vulnerable. Then that shame is there lying to you, saying you're going to get rejected and you're unlovable. And that's where opposite action comes in, right? And that's what you're saying, right, Tyler? But
Right.
to like really slow it down and get to that curious, reality checking, mindfulness place is a skill that takes some practice.
Yeah, and I think that's the first step in practicing some mindfulness, even outside of this exercise we're talking about, will only help that process. So if I'm
Yes.
doing some regular meditation on a daily basis, it's going to allow me to kind of tool up with that skill, and pretty soon I'm going to start noticing things. And I want to just kind of give you a little bit of a recipe of something that I've used for myself in the past with my own shame. So my own shame hasn't been around my body as much, but the principle, I think, still applies. And it was, I would notice that I lived in shame a lot in my own head. And my shame was always about you're failing or you're not good enough, whatever it is. I would feel it. I'd feel it in my chest and my shoulders, and would start to droop my posture. And as soon as I'd recognize that, there's the first part that Brannon's talking about, which is some like critical awareness and mindfulness. The second part would then be, I would shift the feeling and the storyline into something that we call self-compassion, which would be the new story that I want to believe, even though I don't necessarily believe it's true yet. And I'd often even put my hand right over my heart and just feel the warmth of my hand in my chest while I'd say it in my head and say, the truth is, Tyler, that you're a work in progress. You don't have to be perfect today. You're a good person with good intentions, and you can learn and grow until the day you die. And being able to shift that story, and then right after that story, I would force myself to take one small action against the old story. So treat myself to a 5-minute walk up and down around my around my office building, and just notice the nature and enjoy the ability to breathe. Or make a phone call to somebody who I really love and just have them talk to me for a minute. Something that would actually show me that I was worth, almost a behavioral affirmation of the new story that I was trying to create.
Yeah. Tyler, I want to walk Rachel through this. So, what you just outlined. So, Rachel, when you're gonna have sex, and things are starting, and you start to undress, you start to get naked. What triggers? What happens in your body? What type of thoughts do you have? What type of emotions come up?
Gosh, everything. Just I don't want to do it. I start to cry, and I just want to keep my bra on. I don't, like I get super scared, and just I'm hypersensitive to everything about my body, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
The second I take my bra off, it's not good enough. They're just, I'm getting really nervous now because you're
You're
making me.
you're feeling the trigger as you're talking about it. So stop right now.
That's okay. You can hear it in your voice.
Yeah, get curious right now, Rachel, about what you're feeling. Notice what's happening. You're wanting to stop talking, right?
Yeah.
And
Definitely want to like cross my arms and cover everything. Like I want to be in a moo. I don't want to do it.
which is interesting because you're not on camera here. You can't be seen, yet you still want to do that. You still want to
I'm doing
cover.
it literally.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about it. Like it's awful.
Okay. So you want to cringe, you want to cover. Okay. So let's get to the here and now. Okay. Are you safe right now?
Right now, yes.
Okay. So I want you to take 3 deep breaths. Just breathe and get grounded in this moment right now. And just notice where you're at. Notice how safe you are right now. Okay. Now, once you've done those 3 deep breaths, I want you to open up your arms. Don't cover yourself. Be open. Open up your arms.
Okay. That's so hard.
Yeah, this is the act of courage,
Mm-hmm.
because right now you're safe. You're not in harm's way. Nobody's judging you or your body. You are beautiful. You're a daughter of God. All those things are true. Okay? And so right now you can be open, although you don't want to be.
Yeah.
Okay? Now this is scary right now, huh?
It is.
Yeah. You're acting against your shame. This voice that's been in there for so long and had so much power, you can actually take the power back. But it takes mindfulness. It takes connection to God, to yourself, to others, and then it takes courage. It takes courage to step into doing the opposite of what that shame's telling you. Right?
Yeah.
And here's a little hint. Just take a little bite at a time. You don't have to have sex tonight and be extremely vulnerable and extremely naked, right?
I will.
Yeah. But one little challenge for yourself of courage, like to stop, get mindful, recognize whether you're safe, and you know what? Maybe you just take one item of clothing off that you normally wouldn't, because of that fear, and just that's your act of courage, and you breathe through that. Okay. You don't have to jump off the deep end with this.
Yeah.
Tyler, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, it's pretty cool to just kind of observe this, even though I can't even see you. I can hear it in your breathing and in your tone of voice, Rachel, that this is like real live work that you're doing right now. And I think it's awesome, again, that you're just so willing to jump in and be here. You're providing a ton of benefit for a lot of people who are going to hear this as well. To go along with what Brannon was saying, you could almost take this kind of exercise and kind of continue to expand on it a little bit. So like right now, this is intense amount of work, and that's great. Like that's a fine thing to be doing right now. But as you kind of get more and more comfortable, and as you start to notice yourself and notice what your feelings are, and realize that you can be in a safe space and you can open your posture, you might then start leaning in systematically to some other things that might be just a little bit more. Like Brannon said, a certain item of clothing that you're going to take off, or getting more and more comfortable with actually considering maybe being alone with yourself in the mirror, and being able to experience the miracle of what your body actually offers to you, to the quality of your life, to your identity. And maybe another suggestion that was going through my head as we were talking is that maybe I could intentionally start to look for ways to actually experience pieces of gratitude, specifically as it relates to my physical being, you know.
Tyler,
Or,
I don't want to
go
cut you
ahead.
off. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead. Go
Well,
ahead, Brandon.
I want to add a tool to what you're saying. So Rachel, your faulty core belief about your body is what? Like, what do you believe about your body?
It's just not perfect. It's not it's not um it's not attractive.
Okay. I'm not attractive. My body's not attractive. Okay. I want you to just flip that on its head and just say the opposite of that. And it's going to be uncomfortable to say it, but just
Okay.
say the opposite of what that faulty core belief is.
My body is fine. It's attractive.
Take it even further. Go far with it. My body is fine is one thing, but I want you to push it a little
That's not the
further.
opposite. Yeah, go
Yeah.
the opposite.
No. So, my body is attractive.
Okay. My body is attractive. You could even take it further. I am beautiful. I am wanted. I am sexy. Like so 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 those that statement, my body is attractive. Then I want you to make it a statement of identity. Did you hear how I said it? I am beautiful. I am wanted.
Yeah.
Okay. The next thing I want you to do, and what we're getting to is a way to do affirmations. I don't want you to look in the mirror and say, I'm beautiful. I am beautiful. I'm beautiful. But what I'd like you to do is to do what I call an affirmation statement question. And what that is how is it that I am so beautiful? And the reason why you ask the question that way is because you're trying to get yourself to gather information, gather evidence of that being the truth. Because you naturally gather evidence of the other thing being the truth. So how is it that I'm so attractive? How is it that God made me so attractive? Now, is that an uncomfortable question to ask yourself, Rachel?
Right now, yeah, but as I think I practice it, I guess like you're saying, I think it'll get easier and easier. But yeah, right now I just can picture it in my mind. Like I will start crying and I will start, for sure, like you said, just putting myself down and saying all those things I'm used to saying that are quote unquote comfortable.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so so you're hitting on a faulty core belief when that affirmation statement question is very uncomfortable. So that means it's an effective one.
Yeah.
And I love what you said. If you stay consistent, if you every day you wake up and you say, how is it that I'm so beautiful? How is it? Like God made me so beautiful. How? Or why am I so beautiful? You start to answer that question for yourself, and those thoughts start to shift you. Your behaviors, your opposite action. So we're attacking this thing on multiple levels. Opposite action, you're acting against that fear and that shame. Your thoughts, you're asking yourself questions and gathering evidence against that fear and against that shame. And so those are two things that you can do. I actually have one more, but Tyler, are you an affirmation guy? Do you?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same line as you, Brannon, where a lot of times because they feel so false right off the bat, I love the question method that you just talked about. I also sometimes put in like a statement that says, "May I?" So may I learn to see myself as beautiful, or may I learn to see my true value as a human being? And what it does is it then at least allows the brain to open up to this idea of going, oh, that's possible. I kind of wonder, like, I don't even know if this has probably crossed your mind, Rachel, but do you believe it's possible that you might actually really enjoy sexual intimacy? That you wouldn't just be the object or the piece in the puzzle that goes along with your partner, but that you might be the one who actually fully enjoys it.
Um, I think eventually, like, I really appreciate all these examples or things that I can work on for sure. And it's kind of giving me hope, I guess, a little bit. Like I feel eventually for sure that my body is going to be on the back of my mind one day. And I would hope that, and because I'm not like against sex, I love it, it feels good. And I enjoy and like the togetherness of it, but then all of a sudden that just pops up and ruins it for me.
Mhm.
And so I do like all of these examples. Like if I continue to do it, if I write this down, I'm writing it down so I don't forget to do it. And I do feel like eventually for sure it's something that like you guys are saying, it's takes practice. It's inside of me, inside my mind, inside of my um my thought processes and stuff, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, can I get a little weird here?
Show.
Isn't that what it's like all the time, Brannon?
Yeah, that's kind of how I work. So,
Uh,
here's the thing, Rachel. I actually believe that over the years, as a child and with all these messages and the trauma, and then your ex-husband doing what he did, I actually believe that there's some kind of energy, let's call it a demon. There's some kind of nastiness inside of you that gets in your head and feeds you this stuff over and over. And what happens is you've had these experiences, and these experiences are isolated incidences. They happened, they're in the past, but those experiences continue to live. They continue to grow, they continue to get fed. And in a lot of ways, your own brain feeds it. Like Tyler was saying earlier, you know, this antenna, you notice evidence that you're not enough, evidence that you're not attractive. Having said all that, there's a way that you can release this energy. There's a way that you don't have to be shackled down anymore by the shame. And some of the things we've been talking about are some ways to release the energy. But I love EMDR. I do EMDR all the time. EMDR is weird.
I've done it. I know what it is.
You've done it. Have you done it around body image? Have you done it around?
We're mainly working on like the past stuff, for sure. We haven't gotten to that part yet. It's just mainly like all the crap that happened to me as a kid, and then I think eventually we'll get there.
That's good. I would say don't shy away and have courage to do EMDR specifically about those trauma incidences where your husband made fun of you. Okay. Because you have pinpointed those today, and they're obviously still holding a lot of weight and a lot of energy inside of you. And EMDR is not the only mechanism. EMDR is actually it's evidence-based, scientific-based psychotherapy that's actually energy healing. So there's some weird energy healing modalities out there and things like that. Some may be quackery, but some may not be. And ways that you can just release energy, and mindfulness meditation, but there's other things as well. And connecting to God and trying to surrender this over and getting the help of a savior who can take this stuff and hold it for you is absolutely critical as well. And so there's a spiritual component to it, I believe, that you can surrender over.
And I think that that will come in, what Brandon's getting at here with the EMDR. I'm also a big proponent of it. I think it's really, really helpful. And it sounds like, just with what little bits of your story we've gotten today, I would also highly recommend what Brannon just prescribed. But I think that you also doing the work and the things that we've outlined today and that Brannon's taught today will help with setting the stage in that process, because what it'll do is it'll start chipping away at all that other, call them those demons in your head. And
Yes.
And as you start to do that, when you go in and do something like EMDR, you're already prepped for the new way of being, the new energy level that's going to come. Yep. So I think those things together, you put those all together, there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, I'm just kind of getting the chills here thinking about it, but there's no doubt in my mind that you're going to be successful with this. And I'm glad to hear you say that maybe there's a little sliver of hope, because there's always hope. And hope is a massively powerful element that, if you can keep that sliver of light coming through, even when it feels dark and when it feels hard sometimes, when there's hope, you can pretty much do just about anything. And
Yeah.
So,
Rachel, I gotta say, you just coming on here and wanting to ask questions and examine what's going on and understand it. To me, that shows me that you're going to do the work to push through this and to get on the other side of it. And Tyler said it earlier, it's a process. It's going to take some consistency on your part with practicing these affirmations, with acting against the shame, with going through some trauma work, EMDR. But as you work through that process, you'll look back and you'll say, oh my gosh, like what used to terrify me or dominate my thoughts is now gone. I'm free from this.
Yeah.
So you got this. You're going to do it. You're going to be fine.
I'm super excited.
Yeah. I'd love to hear from you in the future to see how things go and to let us know how things work out. So
of course.
Yeah. Thank you
Thanks.
so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rachel. For those of you who are listening, I'm sure that some of you have gotten a ton of value out of this. If you have, please share it with other people. Please rate and review. That's how we're able to reach people and hopefully help others. And we really appreciate people like you, Rachel, willing to come on because you bring such a level of richness and depth to the show. So thank you.
Awesome. We'll see you guys.
See you later.